Welcome to the SJ Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Childs Show. Today, I have a guest, McLoughlin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm excited to chat with you today. I ran across her channel on Instagram, and I really just love the message and services that she has on there and is talking about. So I want to learn more about it and get to know her. And my favorite way to do that is on my podcast and just share this experience with my viewers and listeners. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I really am excited to get to know more about how you got into this industry and what kind of your passion is and what drives you to help provide these wonderful services. So let's start just with an introduction and tell us kind of why you're here today.
Sure, yeah. So my business is IRL Social Skills, stands for in real life. And I started this business in March of 2021. I had worked in the schools for about 12 years, and my specialty was non-speaking autistics, getting them into, be able to communicate. I'm a speech language pathologist by, my professional background. And while that was my specific area of expertise, I also noticed that the autistic students who could speak, who maybe were even academically gifted, were still having a lot of struggles socially. And just with a little bit of help, a little bit more help than is typically afforded in the IEP, they could totally take off. So I was getting my autism certificate, and I found out about UCLA's PEERS program. It's the program for the education and enrichment of relational skills. And this was noted to be the only evidence-based manualized curriculum available for teens and young adults. This was by the University of North Carolina's National Clearinghouse for Autism Standards and Practices. So I was really intrigued because I was like, oh, you want to do something that works, because we know that, single trial learners, concrete thinkers, they're, oh, I do this with this person in this room.
Yeah.
Instead of oh, guess what? These skills, you can do these skills outside of the speech room. And the problem with social skills instruction as it happens in the schools is, number one, they're not using an evidence-based curriculum. Number two, the dosage is way too low. 90 minutes a month at the middle school doesn't cut it, not nearly enough.
No.
And number three, there's no parent training component. So parents want to help their kids, right? But they don't know how. And even the most socially savvy among us doesn't necessarily know how to teach social skills. They are not soft skills. They are hard skills.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I mean, and that's what got me into advocating. That's where, I stepped into my space, was advocating for my son and knowing that I needed to, it was quite about 13 years ago, I guess. Well, no, I guess he's already 13. So it was going into first grade, whatever that may be, 7 years ago, that they said, sorry, based on he's twice exceptional, but he also has global developmental delay. Right. And that makes it, both sides. And so the school just said, sorry, we can't help your first grader do algebra, and we can't help him with his skills either behaviorally. So we don't have a place for him. And so I ended up bringing him home and homeschooling, and he did really well, 2 grades a year for the beginning cycles and things. So we definitely, and then when he was 8, we had him reevaluated at a neuropsych, and he said, well, he's at a 10th grade level right now at 8 years old, math, and but still at that 3rd grade level and below for the social global skills needed. So there's just not a good program for that. I'm in Salt Lake City. Where are you at anyways? I was going to ask you that. You're in California or on the West Coast somewhere?
Yeah, West Coast, Portland, Oregon.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I love Portland. I was there for about 10 years. So we'll talk about that
Oh,
another time.
oh,
Yeah, definitely. That's, but it is so important that when you become an advocate of space for people to understand that you are dealing with such a wide variety of diversity, cultures, knowledge across the board that these both parents and educators have, and really finding kind of that middle ground where you can come in and speak to them at the level they're at. And even if you get 1 out of 10 people that get your message and understand, hopefully that can make a difference in, the lives of many children from then on out.
yeah, and the lives of, actually families.
Yeah,
Because,
100%.
the way that we serve, because we know that, you have a child who is exceptional, has exceptional needs, they're different.
Yeah.
And, our culture as a whole, hates difference.
Isn't
Uh,
that the truth? Thank you for saying that. I
mhm.
don't think anyone's ever just said that, like bluntly just said it. And that is so the truth, isn't it? And that is why we're fighting against this and saying, well, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like, yeah, we hate your hate. We love your hate. We're
Yes.
giving it to you. I don't know what to say. But yeah, that's it's so true that it's butting up against the biggest head ever, right?
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. It's, and we know that it impacts the whole family.
Mm.
And so the way that we serve, it really is the whole family. We serve the teen or young adult and their parent or caregiver who is in the role of social coach. It's usually the parents because they make the best social coaches.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we teach entirely via Zoom. It's a class. It's 16 weeks. That's our like flagship offering is 16 weeks. And that's 4 months. That's
Yeah.
like a semester. That is a long time. And we get intimate, you know? Like it's really beautiful, just gorgeous to see the teens and young adults like in a safe space where they can be seen and heard by peers who are also motivated to learn how to navigate this confusing social world.
Definitely.
And the parents also benefit because they receive the same instruction, although in separate Zoom rooms. And the parents need all the help they can get, right? And when they are, put into a space where they're like, where other people understand what they're going through, that is healing.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
The community that I found and that I've been building and just that you create along your journey is life-saving. It is just like your
Sure.
heart opens up and you're able to be vulnerable. You're able to be raw and understanding about things because there's moments where it is isolating and it is like on an island, especially if um other family members, don't quite have the same understanding. And one great quote that, we love to say is a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And
Yes.
that works for both children and parents in
Oh,
so many ways. Like that showing them, yes, this is what Down syndrome is at a chromosome level. And this is why through biology, these changes have happened. And we can be so accepting now that we know that it's like this science-based evidence, and such. And
mhm.
I think that's really powerful to give kids that knowledge to let them make the choice. Well, it's not they, and someone said this to me yesterday, I didn't choose to be born. I didn't choose to be born with autism. I didn't choose to be born with blindness. I didn't choose to be, all of these things. It just is.
Yeah.
And so why can't you accept it as a community? Like I didn't make the choice to be this way. So giving me your opinion or your judgment, it doesn't make sense. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful.
Wow, absolutely. And when somebody, is judgmental, prejudiced, trying to tell someone else who and what they are, be careful, because that is taking someone else's self-determination away,
Mm,
to determine like who they are for
yeah.
themselves. I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? Who
Yeah.
am I? And
Disempowering doesn't do that. Yeah.
no. And,
Ah,
and then you might also get that privilege revoked of your own self-determination.
I like that you said that. Isn't that the
Yeah.
truth, huh?
Yeah.
Because it works in such a harmonious way that way that unfortunately we do have our karmic, well, in your own beliefs, but
Mhm.
what we do does come back to us. And so why wouldn't we, as adults, as parents, as examples to these children, like be the best we can be and show up, make connections, realize that connection over attention is something that people, for so many, oh, he just wants attention this, attention that. It's these connections that we need to build and trust with these kids and teens, but that space that you said, like when you can watch that growth that happens from having the safe space, making those connections, having that trust, it's life changing for them. It is empowering and affirming,
Mhm.
amazing for kids to see what they can do. Yeah.
It is. It's so true. And, there's something in the research, that is called social validity. How, like, really, how do we know what we're doing is actually working?
Mm.
Like, we can't just say that it is. There has to be data that determines that this is working outside of the treatment paradigm.
Mm.
And we have that evidence, like, in spades. And that is what makes this program so rewarding to teach, because it actually gets results.
Mm.
Because we are humans, and humans are social. I don't care if you're an introvert, extrovert, like whatever. We need each other. We're no good alone. and and to have, these are the most functional skills a person can learn.
Yeah.
I mean, you need math, use a calculator. But if you want to learn how to, like, initiate, cultivate, and maintain relationships, which is really the stuff of life,
Mm-hmm.
you know
The
and
only untaught thing, right? And not
yes,
until
I
you,
know,
well, and
right?
others, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Not something that is like needs to be in a real indoctrination of life skills and social skills and relationship building. Like let's move away from the skills that we can use on devices, maybe now, like you said, calculators,
Right.
and really teach these like conflict resolution
Hmm.
and learning how to have enough self value and self identity to,
Word.
try to maintain in those fragile years of teen, preteen, and young adulthood that you're just trying to still build. Your brain is still forming. You're neurotypically, or excuse me, neuro developing. At it doesn't matter if you are neurodiverse or not. Your brain is still developing.
Yeah.
And until you're an
Yeah.
adult,
Yeah.
and we need to just really, I think that it's great to give kids or teens the knowledge of what their brain is doing at the time of their development, because they really are curious about those types of things. And that really helps them to connect to themselves and
Mhm.
to have empathy for others, when you show them, like, for example, don't use alcohol because this will happen, but your brain is in these kind of developments. And if you do that, do you want to lose the ability to, this or this, whatever is developing in your brain at the moment? So,
Yeah.
um, and it's just parents don't know how to get the information,
Right.
give the information.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so it's so impactful that you have that type of product and service for not only just the teen going through, but the parent to guide them through.
Yeah. And so the learning continues long after the class is over. I like what you said, just, like that really, I felt that what you said about, you know, um, them knowing about themselves and their brain and their nervous system, which really should just be called the relationship system, since it is totally formed and formatted
I love
by
that.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we teach. The first 15 minutes of our class are focused on nervous system education, mindfulness skills, and interoception for
Hmm.
self-regulation and co-regulation. How do feelings feel in the
Oh,
body?
good.
And what do those feelings mean? And parents notice, they're like, oh, I noticed that when I am regulated, my child is regulated. Yeah,
Hmm.
because our nervous systems are connected. And then, and so
That's
that is what we call, intrapersonal skills. It's not just the interpersonal skills, it's intrapersonal skills. And that is not from UCLA. That is my own addition to the curriculum because it is called for. It's kind of like a precedent,
yeah.
to like, just knowing who you are, how you work,
Yeah.
how your body works.
It's amazing. I mean, the curiosity of when I started learning about autism in 2010 and
Mhm.
really diving into as much knowledge as I could find at the time. And I was a medical paralegal, so I knew how to do research. I was
Right.
in there, doing it. And I understand the biology of it. So that was easy for me to see and I was so curious, so much curiosity and like what's happening biologically on these levels, what makes it, why is it a difference, why is, all of the questions that we have as parents. And it was so fantastic to be able to dive right in there and not only understand kind of what was happening for my son biologically, but then be able to set up steps for success after that. Okay, well, if these proteins are causing inflammation, let's remove
Mhm.
them. If
Mhm.
these, and it was just kind of by chance that I had read about diet changes, and I'm not a medical doctor, don't have any, I'm not giving advice or anything, but my own personal experience with our son is that we realized right away that in reading about the gluten casein reduction, it when we saw the changes with our own eyes, that was the evidence we needed, to say, wow, these things really were making a difference. The neuropaths were being blocked by the inflammation.
Right.
The stimming was being affected by the gluten and the inflammation. And here's this child who spun circles all day long. We padded his room with cushions because he would just spin into things.
Wow.
Um, and he was nonverbal. It
Uh-huh.
was so disheartening to not know how to help. And so as soon as you see changes, you're just like, oh, thank heavens. Right. And we stay on that path with our children and to try to do the best that we can with them. And I totally lost track of where I was going with all of that. So I apologize, but it's great to
You're talking about research, and you started researching, and you learned a lot in 2010, and since then the research has really
exploded.
exploded,
Yes.
especially by actually autistic researchers,
Now I know.
and
Thank you very much. Now I know exactly where I was going with that. Is that in that my husband at that same 8 year neuropsych appointment that my son had, I realized in that moment that here's my undiagnosed husband
yeah.
who now I can say, wait, hey, guess what? And that information was so powerful and so empowering for him to put a finger on it, to put a definition, to put a however you want to say, gave him the boundaries that he understood for himself.
Mhm.
And then our daughter, I knew that possibly she was dyslexic. So I really was pressing teachers to test her, but she was so emotionally intelligent that they
Right.
refused.
Oh.
And so finally, when she came home, I used the same home, the online school that my son had attended for all of those years. And they just, were like, you need this? Yes, we're on it. You need this? We're on it. She has an IEP. She's getting tutoring. She's, has this. So then the psychologist came and, yep, dyslexia, autism, ADHD. We were like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
how did I how did I miss those first 7 years of now I can see autism from a whole new perspective and how it's showing up in my daughter and how it's so differently presented in my son
Right.
and my
Yeah.
husband. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, well, wait, if I understand all of this so well,
Huh?
what about myself? And so I
Right.
went and had a brain scan done and got my own findings that I was also on the spectrum, ADHD and anxiety and all most of the things that I knew, but that was
Yeah.
something. Yes. And so it was so um like beautiful really for our family circle to like, wow, we all fit together. So this makes so much sense as to how we can accommodate each other
Yeah.
so gracefully
Uh-huh.
and with patience and understanding as much as we can. I mean, 11 and 13, they're siblings. They're going to give each other as much patience as they
Yeah.
can with that age. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's beautiful to watch the growth that we've had as parents to be able to say, okay, now we see our daughter, we shouldn't engage in those moments where she thinks that she's in control, but we know now that she really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it really turned our eyes and our minds to be okay, we have to back up, we have to stop, kind of give her a little bit more of an understanding of what she might be going through
Mm.
rather than viewing her as a typical child who, as we know, are you throwing a tantrum, are you doing this, and then to realize that okay, wow, that was we were viewing that wrong all along. But it's given us the ability to change what the future looks like and
Mm-hmm.
what our community, or excuse me, communication with them and our relationship and connection with them looks like, which is helping us build our community too, I guess. But
Nice. Yeah, many times in our classes, parents start to realize like, oh, wow, like their own neurodivergence.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Um, and yeah, I mean, the apple doesn't fall far.
no,
So,
when you start to
yeah.
realize that exactly, and I'm looking back at my parents and my grandparents,
Uh-huh.
and now when I'm out in the world, I mean, both my daughter and my son, not so much just because he's still not cognitively functionable to have these kind of conversations yet. But
Mhm.
her and I can be out in the world and just be like, oh, that boy's autistic. Like we can see now the
Yeah.
the nuances and everything. And I think it's just like it it warms my heart really. And
Mm.
not to see them struggling out in the world, of course,
Right.
but just to be like, hey, I see you, I get you. Like and I
Yeah.
think that is so important for us to be seen. Like you said, we're social creatures. We want to
Mm-hmm.
be connected with. We want to be seen and understood and just given respect for being human and dignity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said, it warms my heart, because that's a somatic reference, I mean, that's your body's wisdom,
Yeah.
and we have, we tend to be so, stuck in our heads. And so that is, something that we also teach for the young adults classes is
Mhm.
somatic experiencing, somatic psychology. Just like, okay, slow down. Where do you feel that? Like check in with your throat, your heart, your stomach, your skin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information and there's a communication
Yeah.
that's happening between your mind and your body, and you have to be able to like drop in and listen to that. And sometimes, in autism, you might know about alexithymia, which is a
No.
struggle. Alexithymia is a struggle to discern what physical sensations are and what they mean. And it could be, something like, having to go to the bathroom,
Mm.
to all the way to like, what do emotions feel like? We don't spend a whole lot of time on like labeling emotions, but we do um, help people build awareness and capacity for what is happening in their bodies.
Mm.
Like our supplemental text is "The Body Keeps the Score"
Mm.
by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's mind, body, and the healing of trauma. Because
Mm.
we know that I mean, yeah, trauma happens. Like life is traumatic, And to be peer rejected, socially isolated, shunned, excluded, canceled, to
Mm,
use the parlance of the day, that is like, oh, well, it's not bullying. It is bullying. It's
100%.
indirect bullying, and it is life threatening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
we
so
know
sad.
about suicide. We know
Yeah.
about that, the like serious impact that happens socially
Hmm.
on a person.
Yeah.
And, and we, part of our classes is like the bullying is gold. Like the how to handle bullying is gold because like we shore up their confidence. And, the old, prescribed of, ignore it, walk away, tell an adult, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. You have to have some, a snappy comeback
Mm.
and bystander support
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've cultivated relationships and
Wow.
people are going to be like, hey, don't do that. Even cyberbullying,
Hmm.
learning how to handle that and to be like, you know what, you turn away from the people who do not see you, who do not get you, who do not want to, and you turn towards the people who do see you, who
Hmm.
do get you, and they're likely to share a neurotype.
Yeah. And that is so true, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. We find our tribes, whether we kind of
Mm-hmm.
want to or not, right? Our vibe, find our tribe,
Yeah.
right? And I love what you said. It's so funny. This conversation, I swear, I was going to tell you this afterwards, but I literally am having deja vu moment after moment after moment. So it's very interesting to me. But you
Oh,
said something my husband just said to me like yesterday was
uh-huh.
where are you feeling like the emotions in your body? And he was taught that as a teen as well and how to cope with his emotions. That they didn't, of course, like I said, he was undiagnosed. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he had an ADHD diagnosis and a dyslexia diagnosis, and he
Mm.
was just not really given the fairest of uh, situations. And so
Mhm.
there was a lot of anger that came with that. And so that was the one thing that he started to, well, really gained, I guess, the knowledge from those learnings was where to find that emotion in his body and how to tap into settling it down and calming it down. And I mean, he's so wise. I just give him so much credit for being so wise and teaching me over the last 20 years how to really just be comfortable being myself and knowing that, the powers and things that I can provide for the world, but really also harnessing it and showing our children, like you said, how to do that. When my daughter was young, I thought to myself, like, I'm going to tell her, when grandma's asked, like, oh, who do you love the most? You love grandma the most, blah, 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 things like that, little things. I told her right off the bat, if anyone ever asks you that, you say me. I love myself the most. I'm first. I'm number one.
Nice.
And she is 11. She is a little sassy, in that she has this fire, this like
Right.
inside knowing that she's number one, that she's on top of things, and that she really, and I mean, it can become conflicting, especially for other kids that are probably intimidated and don't know how to react to her being that way. And so, they I see her and adults see her so
Mhm.
differently than the peers
And
and
the
the kids
kids
around
too.
her seeing. And that's the emotional intelligence that she has. And
Right.
it's sorry, right? Sorry, not sorry.
Not sorry. Yeah.
Someday you'll be so glad that you have, and she'll be so glad that she has that inner sense of I'm first and I come first. And so, and some people said, oh, well, that's so selfish. Like, why would you do that? Didn't make your child so selfish. But to me,
Mhm.
why wouldn't I? Like, I wish I had that. I wish I had never questioned my value and questioned myself and had to be retaught and unlearned and all of the things that I've gone through. I'm
Right.
giving her a head start. I'm telling her, hey, bypass this route that I went and
Yeah.
take this path.
Yeah.
It's really going to be self-fulfilling for you in your own love for yourself. So
Absolutely. Yeah. That's like a radical self-love
yeah.
and And yeah, and that does spread out, you know,
Yeah.
people will feel that.
Hmm.
People will feel it. And, you know, yeah, it will intimidate some people, but, you know, those aren't the ones that you want for your friends anyways, you know?
Exactly.
You want to be with
Yes.
the other ones who are strong and powerful and
Yes.
who love themselves. There is no excuse whatsoever in this world to not radically love yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Full on.
And it's given to us by ideas from someone else, which,
Mhm.
we kind of love to, my husband and I remind each other, never do something or make choices based on other people's choices. You remain yourself, true to yourself. If others are speeding down the highway and you want to go 55 and not speed, do it. It
Right.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It doesn't like you. And he always is reminding me, like, look, stop worrying about other people's windshields and how they're viewing you or anything. Like, just worry about yourself and your own thing, which is a good reminder for me, because I get over compassionate and then I tend
Mhm.
to care too much about other situations. Um, but the price of being a kind person, I guess. But I think that it's valuable and it has its drawbacks. Isn't that the truth? Because I really like, you have to learn to self-care and yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you teach self-care and filling, yourself up and making sure you are 100% before giving it all out.
Yeah, well, you know, so we do teach specifically and explicitly about autism and what exactly it is. And we talk about neurodivergence and we talk about the Venn diagram of
Yeah.
autism, ADHD, anxiety, and other neurodivergence. And, you know, it's difference. It's difference and it's diversity. And we need diversity. Like, you know, if you want, you know, you don't want a whole, you know, fields of corn for miles and miles, you know,
Yeah.
that depletes the soil. You know, we need diversity in life. It's biodiversity, and I mean, the neurodiversity movement was founded on looking at biodiversity
Mm.
and extrapolating from that and being like, oh yeah, we need all these different kinds of brains. You know, we really do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we need outside of the box thinkers. We need people who are trailblazers. We need people who aren't trying to just maintain the status quo, because the
Yeah.
status quo is not working for a lot of people.
And it's
You know?
changed so differently from, and it is always changing. And
Mhm.
that's something we have to be really cognizant of too, is how do we foster this idea in our kids that are so literal and so used
Mhm.
to their regular schedule and regular everything? How do we give them a sense of comfortability when change has to occur? Because it is ultimately the only thing we can rely on. And it's so interesting that we kind of, hopefully through our example or through discussions with them, that we can kind of prepare. Like, our son, for example, I find that the more explaining social stories, anything like that, when we have an appointment coming up,
Mhm.
the more understanding he has that you're going to sit in this big leather chair and it's going to feel like this, and you're going to hold maybe this stethoscope, or you might they might listen and touch your chest right here. Those types of like actions and getting him like, okay, this is going to be okay. Then when all of this is happening, he was like, I practiced this.
Yep.
This is something that, my mom showed me is okay, and it's safe and it's comfortable. And I was just clipping his nails, the simplest actions of, what we have to do as humans, right? But how scary and intimidating and terrifying can it be for some children and
Oh,
for
yeah.
some, toddlers and probably even into teens that, just absolutely not, because they've had a bad experience. And I was so grateful in that moment, just that how easy it is, and how much safety he knows, how safe it is. He knows that I'm not going to hurt him. I'm going to be as gentle as I can be. And he
Mhm.
doesn't question. He just, sticks his hands out, sticks his toes out, whatever I need. And I just go.
Yeah.
But it's those things that we take for granted for ourselves. We maybe take for granted in our other children or siblings that can do those things, easily.
Um,
And it's kind of, we have to really step back and be thankful for those moments when we can give grace to our child who has more challenges and say, look how far they've come or how easy they do this. And it sets you up for wins, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Better than like shaming them.
Oh yeah. No, no, no. We don't believe in that, do we? No shame, no guilt, no
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about listening and active listening,
Mm,
right? And I think
mhm.
it's so important that we give understanding to that because yeah, we can be listening while we're on our phones. Uh-huh, uh-huh. But are we actively listening? Are
Um,
we, hey, I built this thing in Minecraft. Will you look at it? No, I don't have time. Take the time. Take the
I'm,
5 minutes. Go
yeah.
and be impressed and say, oh my gosh, show me how you did that. And
Right.
find the like, whoa, the spark of gratitude and of excitement in your child. And of course, not every child's going to be, when we go down to our son's room, he says, I love you, which means please leave. And thank heavens it's I love you. I'm glad it's not anything else,
Yeah.
that he couldn't think of to say. But it's the, your relationship with your child or your teen, what they are their interests are in. Take interest. Go
Mhm.
and find them in their interests and ask questions. Or if they don't like that, maybe bring it up in another way when you're driving in the car, like open
Yeah.
up the conversations and discussions to show them that you like have the interest in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
can. Huh?
Because it's the relationship.
Yeah.
It's the relationship that
The
matters the
relationship
most.
system. I love that.
I earlier you mentioned like practicing, before
Yeah.
he goes to the doctors. And when we in our classes, so can I tell you just how it goes?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So we all start together in the same Zoom room, and there's that first 15 minutes where we're doing nervous system education,
Mm.
mindfulness, and interoception, um, and somatic experiencing skills. And then we break out into two separate Zoom rooms. The teens are with two coaches, or the young adults, and the parents are with two coaches. The teens or young adults, the first part of class, they're getting the lesson. And this is, from a curriculum that's taught in 125 countries in 12 different languages. So, and the like really deep evidence base of that's socially valid. And then the parents are doing a homework review because there's homework every week. And then there's a 5-minute break. The teens or young adults come back and they're practicing the skills that they learned in the first part of class. The parents come back and they're getting the lesson that their teen or young adult got. So we're like cultivating that common language, the terminology is the same, what are we talking about? We're all talking about the same thing. Okay. And then we reunite, we recap the lesson, and then we assign the homework for the week.
Mm.
And the homework, involves practicing the skills. And one of the ways that they practice is by having video chats with
Mm.
each other, both the parents and the teens or young adults, to practice the skills
Yeah.
of trading information to find common interests, and they learn, like they all learn, like parents learn too, that like, oh gosh, these are skills I can use like at a party, or I'm at a networking event where I don't, know anyone and I'm going to just sit there and like, be a wallflower, or am I going to like use skills? If
Yeah.
you don't know the skills, you can't use the skills.
So true.
Yeah. And they're, I mean, I have really great social skills, and I like do it in my head. Like, oh, have I asked a follow-up question? Have I answered my own question yet?
Yeah.
Have I,
Yeah.
am I letting them in to see me?
Mhm.
Or am I just being an interviewer?
Yeah, right?
Right.
I can't have those questions.
Yeah.
Exactly for that reason, I wouldn't be able to connect. I do the same thing. It's all through connection and like
Mm,
listening, right? And I find when I'm in the flow of listening, all the ideas are still coming to me. And I think that's important for kids to hear. You can
yeah.
still, your brain still works when you're listening. Like you can still
Yeah.
engage in the listening part of it and you'll
Yep.
keep getting information. You're not like shutting yourself off from getting information. but
Right.
it's, and I think that's how we teach them probably to do that is through maybe talking to them about that. That's what I'm going to do later on today. Really talk to
Yeah.
them about that. I am I am, we're going to definitely have to have you back on so that we can go over more exciting things. And if you have, anything else coming up in the future for the summer or anything like that, then we'll touch base. But before we do say goodbye, I want to definitely give you a chance to tell everybody your website and socials and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So my website is IRL social skills, in real life, social skills. My socials, Facebook is IRL social skills. My Instagram is at IRL social skills. My LinkedIn is IRL social skills.
Perfect.
Um, we have coming up, we have a conversation skills 101 workshop that is going to be on Sunday, April 3rd and no, yeah, April 2nd. And we do have new classes starting. We have a teen class starting on April 3rd. That's a Monday, and that'll be from 6:30 to 8:15 Pacific time.
Okay.
So not the best time for the teens on the East Coast. But we also have a young adult class starting, so 17 to
Mm.
20 on Thursday, April 6th. And that's our flagship offering, of 16 weeks.
Mm.
And yeah, we'd love to have you. We take no more than 12 families per class.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, so it's
Great.
small. And like I said before, it's, intimate and there's, four coaches. So like the ratio and the team is interdisciplinary, OTs,
Wow.
SLPs, licensed professional counselors, direct support workers, learning specialists. Um, yeah, so it's a dream.
Amazing. Oh, I'm so glad that we got to connect.
Me too.
I'm excited that we get to stay in touch, right? We got to
Yeah.
connect, but now we get to know each other and stay in touch. And there's so much that I think that we can really support each other and draw from one another. So I look forward to that. So thank you so much for being a guest today. I really appreciate your time and I honor you and your services you're providing for our wonderful families and communities out there.
Likewise.
Thank you. And we will definitely be in touch.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.